If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. The Spectral Nun Emerges. On July 28, 1900, 4 members of the Bull family stood frozen in their garden as twilight settled over the Essex countryside. What they witnessed would haunt Borley Rectory for the next 40 years. A figure in dark robes glided silently across the grounds, roughly 40 yards from where they stood, watching. The shape appeared distinctly human, yet moved without making any sound on the gravel path. When the eldest daughter tried to approach the figure, it simply vanished. This marked the first documented sighting of what locals would later call the Borley Nun. Over the following decades, dozens of witnesses reported seeing the same dark-robed figure walking the same path at dusk. The appearances became so regular that Reverend Harry Bull built a summer house positioned specifically to watch what he termed the Nun's Walk. The story that emerged to explain these sightings captured Victorian imaginations perfectly. According to local legend, a medieval nun had fallen in love with a monk from a nearby monastery. Their planned escape ended in tragedy when church authorities caught them. The monk faced execution, while the nun was bricked up alive in convent walls as punishment for breaking her sacred vows. But in 1938, researchers made a disturbing discovery. Historical records showed no medieval monastery or nunnery had ever existed in the area. The romantic tale was complete fiction. If the legend was invented, what had the Bull family been seeing all those years? The Smiths summoned the ghost hunter. The new residents quickly realized they had stepped into something far beyond ordinary haunting claims. Mrs. Smith made her disturbing discovery just days after moving in. While cleaning out an old cupboard, her fingers closed around something cold and smooth. She pulled out a human skull, yellowed with age. The moment she touched it, the house seemed to wake up. Strange lights began appearing in rooms where no one stood. Footsteps echoed through empty hallways at all hours. Most unsettling of all, neighbors reported seeing a phantom horse-drawn carriage moving silently down the lane toward the rectory. The Smiths found themselves living in a place where normal life became impossible. Desperate for answers, they contacted the Daily Mirror newspaper in 1929. The paper sent Harry Price, Britain's most celebrated ghost hunter. Price arrived with his equipment and bold claims about turning Borley into a scientific laboratory for studying spirits. Almost immediately after his arrival, the activity exploded into something far more dramatic than simple footsteps and lights. The Foyster Maelstrom. When Reverend Lionel Foyster arrived at Borley with his young wife Mary Ann and their daughter in October 1930, the haunting exploded into something far more violent than anything the Bulls had experienced. Within days of moving in, furniture began flying across rooms with such force that it smashed against walls. Windows shattered spontaneously throughout the house, often while the family sat watching. The attacks seemed personal and targeted. The most disturbing development came when messages began appearing on walls throughout the rectory. These weren't random scribbles, but coherent sentences written in pencil, often addressing Mary Ann directly. "Mary Ann, please help, get," appeared scratched on a wall in the dining room. Another message read, "Mary Ann, light mass prayers," in shaky handwriting that seemed to plead for religious intervention. Reverend Foyster documented each incident carefully, recording how invisible forces threw his wife from their bed on multiple occasions. He attempted several exorcisms, blessing rooms with holy water and conducting formal prayers, but the activity only intensified. Objects continued to hurtle through the air when no one was near them, and the wall writing multiplied. Harry Price arrived to investigate this new phase of activity. But his conclusions would shatter the investigation. His team noticed that Marianne was consistently absent from sight whenever major incidents occurred, raising uncomfortable questions about the source of these violent manifestations. Fire, prophecy, and buried bones. Harry Price's most ambitious phase began in May 1937 when he leased the empty rectory for a year-long scientific investigation. During seances conducted that spring, a spirit claiming to be Marie Laire delivered a startling prophecy through the Ouija board. The rectory would burn to the ground, the message warned, and human bones would be discovered in the ruins afterward. Price carefully documented these sessions, noting the exact dates and participants. Captain William Hart Gregson bought the property in December 1938, openly dismissing the ghost stories as nonsense. On his first day moving in, however, his loyal dog suddenly went wild with terror and bolted from the house, never to return. Gregson later described the animal's reaction as completely out of character. The dog had never shown fear before. The fire came exactly 11 months after the seance prediction. On February 27, 1939, Gregson reported that books began flying off library shelves on their own. One struck a lamp, which exploded and sent flames racing through the building. Witnesses outside claimed they saw strange figures walking calmly through the flames themselves. The rectory burned completely, leaving only stone walls and rubble. Price returned in August 1943 to excavate the ruins, bringing pathologist Dr. Eric Bailey along. Within 2 days, they found human skull fragments, jawbone, and medieval medallions buried in the cellar. How did Price know exactly where to dig? The Great Unraveling. Harry Price died on March 29, 1948, believing his reputation as Britain's leading ghost hunter remained secure. He could not have imagined what would happen 8 years later. In 1956, the Society for Psychical Research published a devastating report titled The Haunting of Borley Rectory that would destroy everything he had built. 3 investigators, Eric Dingwall, Kathleen Goldney, and Trevor Hall, spent years examining Price's work at Borley. Their conclusions were brutal. They called Price an unmitigated scoundrel, a crook and a liar, who willfully ignored negative reports, distorted facts, manipulated the evidence, and contradicted himself. The report claimed that Price had created most of the phenomena himself through deliberate fraud. The evidence they presented seemed damning. Witnesses came forward, claiming they had found small stones in Price's pockets during investigations, suggesting he threw them to create poltergeist effects. The team argued that strange sounds could be explained by old building acoustics or rats in the walls. Most shocking was the betrayal by Dingwall and Goldney, who had been Price's closest allies and supporters during his lifetime. Yet something odd emerged in their final pages. Despite claiming overwhelming proof of fraud, the authors admitted they found puzzling observations made by reliable witnesses in the absence of Price that they could not explain away. Echoes in the ruins. The final demolition of Borley Rectory's ruins in 1944 should have ended the story. Workers cleared away the last charred timbers and crumbling bricks, leaving only an empty field where England's most argued-about house once stood. Yet even today, visitors to the site report strange experiences. People walking through the area describe cold spots on warm days, and the sound of footsteps on paths that no longer exist. What makes Borley's legacy so difficult to dismiss is the sheer number of witnesses who reported phenomena before Harry Price ever arrived. Captain Gregson's guests in the 1920s spoke of seeing figures in the garden. The Bull family documented strange events across 5 decades, from 1900 through the 1930s, long before any ghost hunters appeared. These accounts came from clergy, family members, and visitors who had no reason to invent stories about a country rectory. The contradictions pile up like puzzle pieces that refuse to fit together. Marianne Foyster confessed to faking some incidents, yet she also accused her husband and the researchers of doing the same. How could everyone be lying about everything? Price may have planted bones to create drama, but how do we explain that the fire happened exactly when the spirits predicted it would during seances held a year earlier? The skeptics from the Society for Psychical Research wrote damning reports about Price's methods. But these same investigators had professional rivalries with Price and career reasons to destroy his reputation. Can we trust their conclusions when they had so much to gain from proving him wrong?